Hello there everyone, and welcome back to the mini album workshop. So I'm going to just talk you through a few things that you need to think about for the remainder of your cover. Alright, so again, you will need your notes and write down any sort of bits of information that might be relevant to your particular cover that you've made. Now, as you saw in the previous video, when I actually folded this, because I didn't crease it first with the Score Pal, the actual paper cracked. Okay, and I said, don't worry if it does that. Now, I'm going to demonstrate the first part on the black cover, because the same could happen over time anyway. Now I have here, let me move that out of the way so you can see, I have here a roll of construction tape which you can get from, in the UK you can get it from My Creative Spirit, Claire Charville. She sells it on her shop, and this is inch wide. I can't remember now whether she does a wider tape or not. So you could actually use the construction tape, right? And I would just place it, move that bit of glue out of the way, over the crease of the spine area. But just bear with me, I want it a little bit higher up. There we go. So it's now over that crease of the spine area. So it's now part way into the spine area and part way onto the front cover. And I know with it being black on black, you won't be able to see it very well, but just bear with me. Now I'm actually going to put a second piece on the second part of the spine fold. And it doesn't matter if there's a slight gap, if you can get them to match up, then that's fine. So with it being black on black, it means that it's not totally visible. Just hold it up closer so you can see. So can you see it's quite shiny, but you can see the amount that I've got on the front and on the back, or on the front and on the back. And I've extended it beyond because I want to be able to fold this over to the inside. Okay, and then again you would use your bone folder to just crease down on the inside edge where that gap is, and you would use your bone folder to just push it down on this side as well. Now what that does is it now gives that spine area here, this crease part, extra support, and we're going to cover over this central part with some decorative paper anyway, so it won't stand out like a sore thumb. Alright, now on the white one you have a couple of choices, or cream I should say. So if you have got this, obviously you don't want to use the black tape, so what you could do is you could cut out a strip of fabric that is wide enough to cover the same kind of area, so it extends into the front cover and the back cover, as well as covering over the spine. And I would use the likes of Fabri-Tac glue to be able to join it. Now you have a couple of options here. You could use a piece of polycotton, you could use a piece of calico, or you could use a patterned fabric, but bearing in mind that the patterned fabric would need to match in with any decorative papers that you're putting on the front cover and the back cover. The other alternative is to use masking tape. So again, you could put masking tape to cover over that area as well. And again, it just helps to protect this spine area. But again, you would need to cut it longer so that you would fold it over to the inside. So then when we put a piece of card on the inside cover, it's not going to stand out like a sore thumb. Okay, so that's the way in which you would do that one. Now the next thing we need to consider is the closure, because there's a couple of steps that you need to take in a specific order dependent on what kind of closure you want to use. All right, now on the original version I used a hitch post which I sell in the pop-up shop. I can't remember the name of my own shop, look, which is in the pop-up shop, and then I've used some seam binding and tied it into a nice bow so that it then hooks over the top. Alright, and I've used an eyelet on the back. Now, one of the problems, if you want to see it as a problem, with using the seam binding is if you haven't cut your cover just quite wide enough and these tabs are sticking out, can you see it's just running over the top of the tabs on this one. Now, if you've done it so that your tabs sit well inside the cover, then that's not so much of an issue. Now, if you're going to use the hitch post, there are some things you need to do in a specific order. You need to attach the hitch post before you attach any papers to the inside cover, because it's made up of two parts. Let me just get one out to show you. Okay, so it has the knob part which sits on the front cover, and then it has a screw part, and so you punch a hole through your cover, pop the screw bit through from the inside to the outside, and then you attach the little knobbly bit on top of that and screw the two together. Now, the reason why I'm saying we add this before we add the inside cover is so that the screw part is covered over by whatever papers you put on the inside, whether they be decorative or plain. Alright, but you also need to consider what you're putting on the front cover, because it will need to sit on top of any decorative papers that you're going to put on. So the decorative papers on the outside need to be put on first, no papers on the inside, and then attach your hitch post. Alright, now there's a couple of ways in which you can do it. One is to just poke a hole using there we go, using a pokey tool and just wiggle it about a bit. The other is to use your doings, I forgot what it's called, the crocodile. I keep forgetting what it's called. So you could use the crocodile to punch yourself a hole, and you would actually use the 1/8 of an inch hole and not the 3/16 of an inch hole, because the 3/16 of an inch will be too big, but the 1/8 of an inch will be big enough, or it should be, fingers crossed. I also used my crocodile to add the eyelet on the back cover. Now again, with the back cover, with the eyelet, you need both the decorative paper on the back and also on the inside, because it's going to pierce through both pieces of paper. If you do it before you add your decorative paper, then it's going to be sitting underneath the decorative paper and not on top. So there is an order within which you need to do this technique. Alright, so just to recap, if you're going to use the hitch post, you need the main part of your decorative papers on the front cover. Don't add any decorative papers on the inside of the cover, and then attach your hitch post. For the eyelet hole at the back, you need to add both your decorative papers as well as your decorative papers on the back cover. So both the inside and the outside of the back cover need to have the decorative papers on. And then you attach your ribbon and it just hooks over the hook itself. So if you can see, buried in amongst all of that ribbon, it's just hooked over there. Alright, so that's one method of doing the closure. Another method of doing the closure is, instead of doing the hitch post on the front, is to do an eyelet hole on the front and an eyelet hole on the back, and then you have your two sets of ribbons which you would then tie up. But again, you've got the issue that if your tabs stick out too far, then it will start to crush those tabs. Now if you decide to use the eyelet hole on the front, you want it both decorated on the outside of the front cover as well as the inside of the front cover. So in that instance, both of those need to be decorated. There is, however, an alternative method. And I'm just going to bring this journal out that I made quite a while ago. So this one uses elastic which wraps around from top to bottom, which means it's not going to encroach on your tabs. And the way in which you do this is you add an eyelet on the back of the cover, so the back of the cover can be decorated, all right, but the inside of the cover shouldn't be decorated, because you end up with this on the back and you actually want to cover that over. All right, so the inside won't be decorated, but the outside will. And then your elastic will wrap around. So I'm going to demonstrate this one. So the inside isn't decorated at the moment, and that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch a hole, and I'm going to use my 3/16 of an inch, and I want it about halfway. So you can mark it with a pencil if you want. Let me just wrap that round there like this. Okay, so whereabouts do you want it? So we want it about halfway down, but we want it a fair way in. We don't want it halfway, we want it about a third of the way in. So round about here, because we need to make sure that the elastic is going to wrap around and hold this closed. If you have it too far in, it won't hold your album closed. If it's too close to the edge, it might have a tendency to slip off and therefore won't hold your album closed. So halfway down, about a third of the way in. Sorry, I've not got much space over here. Okay, so let me just, about halfway down, Carol, and about a third of the way in. So round about there. So I'm just going to make sure that that's lined up. And punch my hole. Okay, so you can now see roughly where it is. Now at this moment in time, I haven't decorated the back cover. It will need to be decorated before I do this. So I'm not going to put my eyelet in, because I want to decorate the back cover up first, but I want to show you how it works. So I have two different thicknesses of elastic. Okay, so if I do that, you'll be able to see the two different, get it over the wrinkles, Carol. Want to be looking at your wrinkles. So you can see the two different thicknesses of elastic. Now it's up to you which one you use. Oh, I'm getting in a tangle. Now I'm going to demonstrate with the thicker one just because it's easier to see. So I would thread, once this is decorated and I've got my eyelet hole in, I would thread the elastic through, and then I would wrap it around once I've got it all together. You know, so once the insides are in as well, wrap it round so that it's going round the whole thickness of the album. All right. Now you want to pull it just slightly, because you do want the elastic to work. If you have it too slack, then the elastic just isn't going to work at all. So it does need to be pulled in just slightly, and then you would cut off the excess. This is just demonstration, don't forget. And then this part of the elastic will also be threaded through that hole. Let me slot that under there so you can see what it is that I'm doing, and move that one out of the way. Alright, so you've measured out how much elastic you're going to need. Now at this moment in time, I've just got the 2 pieces of elastic through that hole. I actually want to knot them together. My problem is this is really, really thick elastic, and as you saw from here, the knot actually creates a lot of bulk, and so I'm actually not going to knot this. So what I would do is I would use a strong glue like my Tombow Mono liquid glue or Glossy Accents, and I would put some glue down top and bottom and lay the elastic down just flat, and then I would use my micropore and put some micropore over the top to then hold those elastics in place with the glue holding them as well. Alright, let's just cut that off, just so, as I say, this is just demonstration purposes. Now, because I haven't got a knot, one of the problems is if I start to pull on this too tight, no matter how strong that glue is, no matter how strong that micropore is, it can come out. So you do need to be careful with it, and then this will wrap around. Now, as you can see at the moment, it's really a bit of slack Alice going on there, look, because I haven't pulled it in tight enough. But you need to remember that I haven't got the insides in yet. So if I had the insides in as well, and once it's filled up and all the rest of it, but I would need to pull that in so that it's tighter, so that it gives it a nice tight fit, so that that elastic works and does its job. One of the other things that you can do if you're going to use elastic is, before you thread the elastic through, let me just take it back out again. Before you thread the elastic through, so you could actually glue that first one in place, is at this end here, before you thread it into that hole at the back, you can add a series of beads or charms that complement the papers that you have on the front cover. So if I just show you this one again, so here I've got a selection of different beads that I can add to the front cover. Alright, so those are a couple of closure, well, three closures that you will need to consider. Alright, I want you to think about that before we move on to the next part, and I will start to talk about how to decorate the inside cover and what you actually need to do and how we can decorate the front cover. So that will be in the next video, but I wanted to give you the heads up now of the thought process of the closure that you're going to use, so that you can start to think about it and contemplate it before we actually start decorating the covers themselves. I hope that helps and gives you a little bit of inspiration, and I'll see you in the next video to talk about decorating the front cover itself. Okay, speak to you again soon. Don't forget, any questions, ask on the group, and I'll try my best to answer them. Right, bye for now.